Annyeong, it's Mikey here, and welcome to Mikey Types. Today, we're going to be doing an unboxing and review of the Attack Yogo75 Pro. Now, Attack reached out to me. They really wanted me to try out this board and do a quick video on it. Please, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a warning. This is for a Kickstarter. So, one thing I'd love to say is that Kickstarters, you have to be careful no matter what. Even if it's a brand named company, you just never know. So I want to give you guys that forewarning from now, just so you guys can have an idea. Like, this is a Kickstarter and Kickstarters aren't always guaranteed. But sometimes when you are dealing with brands that have already been around for a long time or have some kind of name value out there, usually you're going to be a little bit safer. So this is just a pre-warning before we go into this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get straight into the unboxing. Thank you again, Attack, for sending me out the Yogo75 Pro. So let's get into this unboxing. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that it comes in this really nice packaging box. So it's just a shipping box, and then we're going to be going into taking a look at the actual packaging. One thing you'll notice is, going to be honest, this really reminds me of how Lo-Free does their packaging. It's a very nice, clean package. It's like a minimalist style, which kind of matches with the theme of this board. Now, I haven't tried other Attack stuff, so I can't really, talk about the exact packaging if, their other packaging is actually much more budget or not, but this one really came very nice. I have to admit that I really liked how they presented it, and it really comes off like they put a lot of thought and effort into making sure that you're getting a really nice premium unpacking feeling. So on the side, you get your accessories, you get a braided cable, you also get these really cool magnetic feet. So those are going to be for the angle is what my assumption is going to be, but I could tell that they were magnetic because of how they actually clamp together. I had a hard time trying to put it back into the little bag right there. For some reason, when taking it out, it's easy, but then when I'm trying to put it back, obviously it's not going in very well, and I had to give up at some point. Now, the USB dongle is separate. This is already, for me, is going to be a little bit of a sad thing because I prefer a board that has a USB dongle slot just so you don't lose the USB dongle. Now, inside you do get a manual with shortcuts for function and then like a warranty card and such. Now, taking a look at the keyboard itself, one thing I noticed is the way that it's glued on for the paper that actually wraps around the keyboard is very, very sticky. Normally, I would have thought like with one rip it should come off, but no, like the whole thing had to be completely ripped apart for me to even see it. My first impressions with this board is that it's very sleek and very clean, but I can already tell that this is going to be a fingerprint magnet. I really like how the aluminum is. It feels very light in my hands. I was actually quite surprised with how light it felt. I thought it would have been heavier because it's an aluminum board, but it felt super, super light. So before we go into a sound test, it's going to weigh 958 grams. Now, before we go into a teardown, I want to show you guys the reason why I couldn't do a lubed sound test. Now, as you can see here, trying to open up a switch really was not the best idea. One of the things that I noticed with these switches is that trying to open it and pry it open by getting off one side actually ended up removing one side, but then the other side trying to remove it actually broke off the hinges completely. So then I couldn't put the switches back together. Now, that's kind of unfortunate, and I really wish I could have lubed the switches, but after breaking one, I almost broke another one, and it just wasn't worth it. Now, one thing to notice with the plate is actually it's a F44 plate because this is the Pro version, and it has a little bit of flex cuts, but it's going to be on the sides and not like your usual in between the different rows for your keys. Now, of course, the back, as you can already see, is a huge fingerprint magnet, and you can see all the fingerprints that kind of got on the back. We're going to open up the back with the screws, so there's a total of 8 screws that you have to remove. So once you remove them, you just have to make sure to get the ribbon cables off. There's actually quite a lot. So there's going to be one for the battery, one for the daughter board, actually 2 for the battery, and then 1 for the screen as well. Now, one thing I've noticed with the back is that you have a taped on foam for the PCB, and honestly, I'm not a big fan of that. I just wish it was separate because it gets really difficult to actually take it apart. Now, measuring it out, you are going to get 1.2 millimeters for the PCB and the plate, and the PCB itself is non-flex cut. Something to note is that for the Pro version, you are looking at 5000 mAh battery, which is a very large battery size, especially considering it's a low profile keyboard. I actually really appreciated it because when I was using this board and I used it pretty much wirelessly only for a whole week, I had really good battery life with it, and it still had about 60% battery left with the backlighting on. Now on the bottom you do get a very nice foam for the case, which was quite nice to see. And overall, it's going to be hard to tape mod this because the back of the PCB foam is actually taped onto the PCB. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to actually do a tape mod on it because it's just going to ruin the back of the foam. So that's something to keep in mind. And one thing to note when you are putting it back is just make sure the top left is aligned properly because it is sticking out a little bit. You actually have to put that in first before you put in the rest of the case. And then just screw in all the screws and you should be good. Now the stabilizers are plate mounted stabilizers. They're Kale low profile stabilizers, and I'm gonna be honest with you, they're not the greatest. They are decently lubed, but we're definitely going to have to go mod them because they have a scratchy sound to them. And this is the same case for the Icunix, where they use the Kale stabilizers as well. And I think Kale really needs to work on their stabilizers for low profile keyboards because they all just aren't the greatest. And the issue with the Icunix was the fact that the plate was not matching with the stabilizers. In terms of the Yogo, it's just the stabilizers itself is kind of scratchy and it has a little bit of that tinging and scratch sound to it. So I tried adding some extra lubes, but it didn't work. So the thing I realized was the whole stem of the stabilizer is actually quite loose. It moves around a lot, so it doesn't fit perfectly inside of the stem housing. Sorry, the stabilizer housing. And because of that, I felt like I needed to kind of tighten it up a little bit. So the best way to tighten up the stabilizer in this situation is going to be add a little bit of tape to there to let it fit inside the case completely. So specifically the plate, you want it to be very, very sturdy. So grab some masking tape and then I'll show you guys exactly how you should cut it up so that it fits right in there. So just cut small pieces and then you're wanting to have it so that it's lined up with the front of the actual stabilizer housing. So like this, you're just going to put it in there and then you just want to make sure the front is lined up just so that the stabilizer housing is going to be pretty tight when it gets into the plate. Now the funny thing is the rest of the stabilizers were completely fine. It was just the space bar. But still, even then, I felt like there was a little bit of scratching, and I think it's due to the fact that the stem in the stabilizer housing is still a little bit loose and it moves around quite a bit left and right, which then ends up scratching to the housing. This is something that I really, really hope Kale fixes in the future and that more companies that end up using it will actually have a better time and better customer experiences. So this is just something to note. Now the next thing I do want to show you guys is going to be measuring out the front height and the back height of the board. When I first got this board in my hands, the first thought I had was that the board actually felt maybe a little bit too thick and high, not like your normal low profile. But then I actually kept it with me and I used it and then I measured it and I actually compared it with like the Newfie and I figured out that actually this board is smaller and shorter than a Newfie Air 75. The front end, I can't measure with the foot, but it comes to 12.1 millimeters, but with the actual front rubber feet, you're probably looking at around 12.4. And then the back is going to be 18.8. And then with the feet, you're probably going to be looking at an extra 8.5 millimeters. So a total of 6 millimeters of height. Now I want to do a decibel test for you guys just to show you guys how loud this board is, because doing a sound test, it's not going to give you guys a good idea. Now this thing in total will average around 59 decibels. That is very, very quiet. It's going to be more of like your deep, creamy sounding board than it is more like on the Thok side. Now going into a little bit more information with this board, the front profile does look really sleek where the keycaps are actually aligned with the case. Now, if you look at the side, the volume knob is going to be too high up. It doesn't line up with the rest of the keycaps, which is unfortunate. I also do appreciate that they give you the switches for the different modes, but there's no USB dongle holder, which sucks. And the screen itself is interesting, but it doesn't really add much to the board. It's kind of like a gimmicky feel to me. I'm going to be honest with you guys. The rest of the stuff though was quite cool. I do like the 2 buttons, which you can program yourself to do other things. The back is a fingerprint magnet, so you have to be careful with the back, and you're gonna have to clean it with a microfiber cloth. I do like the magnetic feet. They do work really well, but if you're gonna put it in your backpack, it's not gonna be fun because it's gonna fall off. As you can see from the back and the side profiles, it does give you a nice typing profile. Now the backlighting is not gonna be your brightest lighting. I'm gonna be honest with you, if you are someone who likes very, very bright lights, this is not gonna do it. The stabilizers, they definitely need work. The spacebar just has some scratch to it, and I do wish that the switches that they use was a little bit more sturdy, but they are kind of fragile, so be careful if you wanted to lube the switches. I really highly say don't do it at all. Now going into the Kickstarter page. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, it is a Kickstarter right now. It's going to end at the end of this month. The pricing right now is very good. Honestly, like $80 to $90 for the Pro version is an incredible price, but it's still a Kickstarter, so you just have to be careful. I do wish that they provided the case though with the board instead of having it separate, because as I said, the keycaps can scratch easily, and if you have it in your backpack, I'm kind of worried that over time, in a very short period of time, you will have ruined keycaps through it. Now, of course, going into the software, I do think that they made a very, very decent web app. This web app itself has a lot of the features that you're going to need, which is going to be remapping to different things that you needed to. And overall, you can also remap like the side keys, right? So the key 1, key 2 to do different things you like, or you can even do macros, which is super awesome to see. The thing about this whole board and the whole software is that it's very simplified. So most people will be able to actually use it and be able to change things that they want, and the fact that you don't have to download anything. I really don't like downloading stuff onto my computer because I just have too much bloatware. It's nice to see that this is a web app, and as you can see here, you can even do advanced settings, and you can do different like combination keys, or you can do the actual flame key setting, which is just going to be triggering a key multiple times very quickly, which I'm really curious what that would be good for, but that's just me because I probably won't use it. You can also put into Mac mode and do different things like Windows key lock. You can even do something called Smart Speed X, which is really cool. I'm assuming this is going to be to help with latency, but I mean, overall, this is a 1000 polling rate board, which latency wise, it's really not bad. And if you're going to be using it for gaming, it actually does work pretty decently. I actually do sometimes like low profiles for gaming, and this one was pretty good when I tried it. You can also change up the screen here in the software, so you can log in, maybe download some other things, or you can set up your own custom screen thing. And as you can see here, you can log in there with making an account. I just didn't want to make an account because I'm not a big fan of getting just a bunch of marketing promotion emails. Now, overall, I have to admit, they did a very great job with this web app. Something that I normally would not say unless it actually is pretty decent, but this one from my experience was pretty good, and for most users it'll definitely do the job for what you need it to do. Even compared to VIA, I think it was not too bad. It's not as customizable as VIA, but still pretty good. Now, keyboard inspector, you still get 1000 polling rate. I even tried doing the Smart X just to see if in keyboard inspector would it come up with like a different polling rate. You will see that it has like the extra keystrokes that are coming in very, very quickly in terms of the actual keystroke section, but it doesn't change the polling rate at all. So just keep in mind for that aspect for yourself. And you can also change when the keyboard falls asleep. I found that the board wakes up really quickly though, even when you put it to sleep. So that's something really nice, and it actually connects really quickly. So those are things that I think are a big pro in terms of this board. Now, I want to compare this board with some of the competitors out there. So this one here, right now on Kickstarter, it is going to be like the $80 to $90, depending on when you're purchasing it. And that's a very, very good price for this board. But then after the Kickstarter, it will be $130, which I thought maybe too expensive. But then we're going to go in and check with the competitors because, you know, for a 5000 milliamp hour battery board, that's very good. The new Yogo75 is actually 140 USD, so it's going to be $10 more. I do like the Newfie because it's quite portable and very useful, but it only has 4000 milliamp hour battery. It's going to last shorter time than the Attack, and it is $10 more expensive. The iQnix MQ80 is even more expensive at $30 more. I think the build quality though, the iQnix is just much better, but the thing about it is the stabilizers on these boards were just not great. If they fix that, I would say iQnix really does stand out as a very, very good, probably the top of the line low profile, but it still has a 4000 mAh battery compared to the Attack, and the Attack also, just like the iQnix, can use chaos switches, so that means you do have a very large choices of switches that you can change it to. The Flow 84 from Lo-Fi, I was quite shocked at the price. Like, I know it's on sale right now for $120, but my goodness, $160 for this board is very, very shocking. I was very shocked at that price because it seems very expensive for a low profile board, especially when I consider like the quality of the iQnix, and this thing is only 2000 mAh battery. At $120, it's a little bit more feasible, but even then, I'll call it a little bit pricey. So overall, comparing it with different boards out there, the Attack really stands out. Even at $130, it's a very decent deal, but of course, if you buy it during the Kickstarter, you are going to save a lot of money. But just remember that you always have to be careful with Kickstarters because sometimes they just don't work out very well. So on screen, you can really see the pros and cons of this board, right? The pros are like the switch sounds great, stock, you don't have to lube them, but you know, it would have been nice to be able to do so just to see how good the switches can be and how good the board can sound in total. The long battery life is great. I do wish that they would change the volume knob, and I really do wish that they'd fix the stabilizers. So I hope you guys enjoyed how I changed up the way I do the video and a little bit more compact to give you guys the right information and obviously make it a little bit more shorter with a little bit better visuals for you guys to take a look at. Now, the biggest thing about the Yogo75 that I found really interesting, and this is going to be something that maybe you guys will also feel as well, is that when you have it in your hands, it feels not like a low profile. And why I say that is because from my experience, I've tried like the iQnix, I've tried the Newfie ones, I've tried the Node 75, the Air 75 V3, I've also tried the Lo-Fi Lite, and the Lo-Fi Lite is like an incredibly thin board. Now, when you compare these two boards, it's actually very, very interesting, but the Yogo is actually a little bit thinner than the Newfie Air 75 V3. It's really, really interesting. When I thought the Air 75 V3 was in my hands, I thought, oh, this is like a really nice low profile portable board. The Yogo75, on the other hand, I originally thought, oh man, this is going to be like a not low profile, but more like a mid profile board. But it turned out to be that when I measured both beside each other, it actually was that the Yogo was same profile or a little bit actually more shallow compared to the Newfie Air 75 V3. It's a little bit thinner. And when I compare it with the iQnix board is going to be definitely a little bit more on the premium build quality. This is an aluminum board that really works well and has a nice feel to it with the CNC to it, but it has a almost hollow feeling to it. And that's something that I personally thought was a little bit iffy personally. But overall build quality wise, it's still strong. It doesn't bend, right? When I try to bend this and try to break it, it's not going to break at all, which is a good quality for it. And you want that when you are carrying it. The only thing is, it is fingerprint magnet and you're going to get your keycap scratched in your backpack. So that's why I say it would have been very nice if they provided a carrying case for it. I think overall, this board has been really nice because the battery life is super long. When I tried and compared it like with the other boards out there, this one definitely has a longer battery life over all of them, which is super, super nice. And the sound profile is really nice, but I do wish they would fix this volume knob. They should really provide something that's a little bit more lower profile that matches with the board because it just sticks up so much. And I feel like if I put this in my backpack for too long, this thing's gonna break, especially the volume knob. So those are my feedbacks to this board. Of course, if you're looking for something portable that is quite sturdy, that has a longer battery life and has a really nice, like quieter thok to it, you should go check this out. But keep in mind, it is a Kickstarter, so be careful. I will also have the links in the description for you guys. And I would appreciate it if you guys go check out the other videos I got. And I'll have to catch you guys next time.